So you're welcome back to today's broadcast. Let us look into what is going on in the north. In fact, it is a very mind-blowing video to the extent that the northern elders is now begging the Igbo and the Yorubas for protection. In fact, make sure you watch this video to the end, mostly at the end, because there is something that happens in this video that I would like you to see at the end of the video. So according to the headline, it says, from conflict to collaboration, northern man beg Igbo and Yoruba for help against Fulani terrorists. So as it is, they are now come out and start demanding for help from the Igbo and also from the Yoruba side, so that they can defeat this terrorist that is happening. And you also see in this video where the Fulani man is preaching against this barbaric behavior that these people they are doing in the north and the whole of the country. In fact, make sure you watch it and you will see what is really going on in the north, because as it is now, everywhere is shaking, and we know that Gumi and his like, which is Sultan of Sokoto, he will not even like to see this video, because this man is a Fulani man. He will expose a lot of things that is happening in the north and a lot of things that is happening in their region, and why they need to believe in God, not in Allah, but they call it a God to avoid condemnation in hell. In fact, it's a very, very powerful video. It's a very powerful video. Now is no more the time when they will tell you that government will come and protect them. They will do this, they will do that, because no matter what happened, instead of the government to come to protect you, they will even come to ransack you and to collect your arms, to collect the thing you use to protect yourself. Now there is no more help anymore from any place. That is the main reason why they are now begging for the South to come for their aid. As you're about to watch, like, subscribe and share for everyone to see things going on in the country.
I saw this video, a Fulani man preaching Christianity to the Fulani in northern parts of Nigeria. I hope Sultan of Sokoto and Sheikh Gumi will not be angry with it, because this is what they don't want. This is what they don't want to hear. They don't want to make people from the north wise.
Which is eternal life. When you receive eternal life, you have escaped from damnation. You have escaped from the wrath of God. You have escaped from eternity in hell.
Until people go to the genesis of the insecurity, we will not have a solution. That is the genesis of the insecurity in Nigeria. It started. I keep quoting. I've quoted it so many times. Others have also quoted it, not me alone. In 1960, just barely 5 months after Nigeria got independence in October. In fact, in October, I think it was 12th October, 1960, the late Sadana of Sokoto, Alhaji Samadu Bello, he said that this new nation, Nigeria, that was the word he used, should be an estate of our great-grandfather, Usman Dan Fodio, and we should never allow a change of power. He continued, the northern minorities we shall use as stepping stones, and the south we shall use as conquered territory, and we shall never allow them to rule over themselves. This ambition of the Fulanis to overrun Nigeria with their brand of Islam, which does not allow of religious tolerance, even within the Islamic faith itself, with a particular brand of Islam, so that if you don't believe in that brand of Islam, you are to be killed. Because even Yoruba Muslims, Yorubas were Muslims before Danfodio came to Nigeria. Islam in Yoruba land is older than Islam in the north. But we didn't take Yoruba didn't take the Islam from the north. Islam came to Yoruba land through a different route, and it predated that of the north. Even they regard Yoruba Muslims as infidels, because Yoruba Muslims are tolerant. In Yoruba land, we are very tolerant of religious differences. In families in Yoruba land, we have Muslims, we have Christians coexisting, living together, celebrating together. That is our own brand of Islam. So because of that, the Fulanis regard all of us, Christian and Muslim, as infidels. Because if you are a true Muslim, you are not supposed to live happily with a Christian. You are supposed to kill them. So I'm saying that those of us who think we are targets to be killed, but the same people who say they are the same country with us, we have a right to say no. We want to a place where we can live our own life peacefully. Where we can live our own life peacefully without being afraid to go to bed at night. That some people might come and burn our villages and kill us and rape our women. So that is why I don't blame people who are agitating for Yoruba nation, for Igbo nation, for all sorts of other things, because we are all confronted by the same terror, the same terrorism that is now ravaging Nigeria, which is based on this Fulanization agenda. This
is my call to Igbo, Yoruba, and other Nigerian nationalities.
Middle Belters.
And everybody. As long as we want genocide to end in Nigeria, as long as we want Nigeria to be a comfortable place for everybody, most especially the Hausa land.
Middle Belters.
Yoruba, Igbo, and other Nigerian tribes have to help Hausa people.
Hausa are calling Igbo and Yoruba to come and help them fight Fulani, stop insecurity in northern parts of Nigeria. It's a pity that tribalism has eaten the north so deep, where many of them are now wise to know what they want. All this while, Nnamdi Kanu, the man who sees the future, come out, warn the north about Fulani agenda. What did you people do? You gang up and sentence him to life imprisonment. Who is going to fight for you? The north are the problem of the north. If you people really want to stop this insecurity, all the Hausa politicians should rise up and defend their land. You guys are the ones close to these Fulani people. They have been living with you for decades, so you know how to handle them. You people should stop romancing them. Unfortunately, the northern part of Nigeria is now ruled by the Fulanis. The Fulani elect are not the ones deciding for the Hausa. They are not the ones speaking for the entire north. And now you want other tribes to come and fight it for you. It will be difficult because you people sees it and you neglected the man who tried to stop it.
I never see people where they're greedy like northern elites. I get video for now. When I know say if I come to make my video, I know they lie, and I know they look face, and I know they fear anybody. The reason why I'm putting up this video is for the video to reach you people. It's for the video to anger you people. It's for the video to look like a slap in you people's face. This is my video today. I know they respect anybody for this video. If you receive this video, it be saying your region and they call out today. No come for comment section to tell me rubbish. The truth are the talk. Northern elite, political elite, and the northern, some of the religious leaders and some of them big men there, they are very greedy. Since Oyibo come this country, some of them, where God help, they go Britain school, can't get money. They still join Oyibo since that time, enslave these people, make them today redundant, make them to be like say they see this day, and they are pretending. Is it not in Zamfara? They say they get airports where they build for ground, where Chinese people and Oyibo they carry fly plane like that plane where land for road the other day. Nigerians take up. Nigerians there say the pilot land the plane miss way. Which kind of stupid talk? Which one be plane miss way? Why the plane no miss way? Enter bush. They can't enter concrete road. Imagine say they no see that plane. Who know what's in there inside that plane? Maybe now like this, all these planes don't they land every night. Maybe that plane don't they land here every night. They discharge military hardware for terrorists, for bandits. We don't know. Let's be realistic. We are not serious in this country. Citizens will see that plane that day, therefore hold the pilot, search inside that plane. I have never seen anywhere a plane will land without compass. And Festus Kaimo, the Minister of Aviation, does not see it serious. The security chiefs, they don't see it needful. This is beginning to bring my attention. So when people say helicopter, now they drop color and the materials for bandits for bush. For even Kaduna, southern Kaduna that time, they talk all these things, we think, say that story. How can aircraft land on the roads that then they tie after the man take off again? They say he missed road. Now thunder go fire anybody who believe that story. That pilot has been landing there. Maybe people weren't supposed to deliver. No, they can't discharge. They say you don't know where. So now where is the plane? Did they catch the plane? Did they catch the pilot? Did they interrogate them? Everything is no. This is the country we are. Let me not deviate. Is it not in Zafara plane they land? They carry goats. All the whole north get solid mineral. Different solid minerals. What is the government doing about it? Are they mining that mineral the way that they have sold all the whole oil wells that is in the south? The way that America have collected the whole oil wells and Britain in the south, that even we, where the Nigeria no see oil use, Dangote no see oil buy. Dangote no see oil buy. Can never get put away to do that refinery. If inside the line, make him come and tell Nigerians. If that oil that access to him, he could have not been talking about Strait of Hormuz, which means he's buying cheap oil in the Middle East. Every gold, every copper, everything, food for naught. Still yet, Almajiri children carry plates in their water. Is it not a shame in 21st century? Everything. North could have been Dubai of Africa. But wickedness and greed. Una no one build school, una no one build road, una no one build infrastructure, una no one build factories. Where these children go to work? Only way to una they build, they should put them for face. Una they tell them the way of the Lord, the way where they go tell go meet God, meet everything. Is God poor? If I say what you they tell these people, so now they practice them, they no go carry plates, they dirty. Some of them know they bath, they go carry dirty plates, they beg for food. Tomorrow they go say see not Almajiri, when I say not tradition. What kind of stupid tradition is that? You people has to do something about it because your region is very rich. I don't want when they come they say North no they rich. North is richer than South. Go down the oil. In the next 50 years time, that crude oil is useless. Then they begin the suck gas. They go tell you say North don't get anything. Who tell you say North don't get anything? If not, no get anything. Why is Britain one power to them for their hand during before pre-independence? Now because of all the whole solid mineral, only just alone self, Plateau State get uncountable minerals. These people they carry aircraft, they land every day, they push guns here. We there here the talk story. These boys wear full bush everywhere, we carry better color, where them buy for. Now spirits now supply them to them. Let me tell you something, not an elite. Now greediness, one are still there inside. Now don't destroy that region to 80%. And if Almajiri children, make I give on another last Facebook. If Almajiri children get 25,000, una they train another 25,000 bandits. Because these children no go school, they no get skill acquisition, they no get anything. Then you people think that at the end of the day, when they grow up to 20 years, they no get anything and they recruit them, they no go join. Una lie. And una think so una go sleep well. For that una place, una be big jokers of the century. If una know waiting they good for una now, all that money will una pack, go keep for Vasi. They train una children so that they go come back as una done the position to be House of Rep members and governors and everything. They no go sleep. They no go get good peace to do anything the way they want to do. I'm just giving you people friendly advice. You people can take it. You people can leave it. I don't care. I have already told you people. First and foremost, we wanna go withdraw Almajiri children for roads. Begin to rebuild una region. We wanna don't scatter with greediness. Una too greedy. Shame upon una.
In 1804, a man named Usman Dan Fodio declared a holy war in the Hausa city of Gobir. What followed was one of the fastest political transformations in African history. Within 20 decades, the Sokoto Caliphate had absorbed the Hausa kingdoms, pushed into Borno, and built the largest empire in sub-Saharan Africa. It conquered everything. Everything. Except one place. The jihad swept south, and then it stopped. It reached the northern edge of the Yoruba belt, and it did not cross. Think about that. The most powerful military religious force in 19th century West Africa, and it hit a wall. Nobody talks about that wall. Nobody asks what the wall was made of. Today, we're going to find out. If the Sokoto Caliphate was so unstoppable, why did it stop? The wall, identity of the wall revealed progressively in sections 3 and 4. Before we go any further, if you're new here, let me tell you what this channel is. This is not a propaganda channel. This is not a tribal channel. This channel exists to give Nigerians and Africans across the diaspora political and historical analysis built on verified facts, not sentiment, not emotion, not agenda. Whether you are Yoruba, Igbo, Ija, Tiv, Ido, or from anywhere in the Middle Belt, this analysis is for everyone who wants to understand the story beneath the story. Hit subscribe, stay with me, because this one gets deep. Let's start at the beginning. Because to understand the war, you need to understand what was doing the pushing. The 1804 jihad was not at first a military campaign. It started as a theological protest. Usman Dan Fodio was a Fulani Islamic scholar living under the Hausa Gobir kingdom. He had spent years preaching, writing, building a following among both Fulani and Hausa Muslims who believed the ruling class had corrupted Islam with traditional practices. When the Gobir Sultan tried to suppress him, Dan Fodio did what prophets throughout history have done when cornered. He left, and he came back with an army. What happened next was extraordinary. The jihad didn't just win battles, it flipped kingdoms. Fulani scholars embedded inside Hausa courts, administrators, clerics, advisors switched allegiance. The kingdoms didn't just fall from outside pressure, they collapsed from within. Within 20 years, the Sokoto Caliphate had established 30 emirates covering most of what is now northern Nigeria. The administrative, legal, and religious architecture of those emirates still shape Nigerian federal politics today. Now, here's where you need to pay attention, because the jihad wasn't just moving east to west, it was moving south. And as it moved south, it encountered something different. It encountered the Oyo Empire. Now, the old Oyo Empire by the early 1900s was in serious struggle. Internal power struggles, military overextension, a constitutional crisis between the Alafi, the king, and the Oyo Messi Council that was supposed to check his power. The empire that had once stretched from the Atlantic coast to the Niger River was fracturing. And right in the middle of that fracture, one man made a decision that changed everything. We are going to come back to that man because his decision is the reason Ilori is not in Yoruba land today. But before we get there, we need to understand something that most people completely overlook about the Oyo Empire. Something that explains why the Caliphate, which had broken kingdoms far stronger than Oyo in the north, suddenly found itself unable to advance further south. The answer is not about religion. It's not about numbers. It's about architecture.
Here is the thing most people don't know about the Oyo Empire. It was, by design, resistant to exactly the kind of collapse the Caliphate might on. Fact: the old Oyo Empire was a constitutional system. The Alafin's power was checked by the Oyo Messi, a council of 7 chiefs. If the council decided the king had failed, they could send him an empty calabash. That was the signal. The king was expected to take his own life. Think about what that means structurally. Political authority was distributed. It was not concentrated in one ruler who could switch allegiance and bring the whole system with him. Compare that to the Hausa kingdoms. There, the Sultan's conversion or the Sultan's defeat essentially decided the political fate of everyone beneath him. One man at the top, flip the top and the whole structure tips. In Oyo, that strategy didn't work. There was no single top to flip. But the constitutional structure is only half the story. The other half is military, and this is where it gets even more interesting. Fact: military authority in the Oyo Empire was not held by the king. It was separately vested in a position called the Are Onokakofo. Think of it as a professional generalissimo. The most powerful military commander in the empire held no peacetime political role. He couldn't sit on the council. He couldn't inherit the throne. His only function was war. This separation of military and political authority created something remarkable. A professional warrior class that had no reason to compromise, negotiate, or defect for political gain. Their identity, their purpose, their entire existence was the defense of Oyo. You can bribe a politician. It's much harder to bribe a man whose entire identity is the battlefield. Now, you might be wondering, if the system was so strong, why was Oyo falling apart in the early 1800s? Fair question. The short answer is, the system had been under stress for decades. The Alafin and the Oyo Messi had been locked in a slow-burning constitutional crisis, and some of the men holding powerful military positions had begun to use that power for personal ambition rather than collective defense. But here's the critical point. The fall of Old Oyo as a capital city is not the same as the conquest of Yoruba land. Most people conflate those two things. The textbooks conflate those two things. They are not the same thing. Fact: when old Oyo collapsed, the Yoruba people did not surrender. They relocated, reorganized, and rebuilt. New power centers emerged: Ibadan, Abekota, Ijaye, each with its own military infrastructure, each capable of independent resistance. So what was the war? It was constitutional distribution of power and military professionalism anchored outside the political class. The Caliphate's primary method of conquest, flipping internal political leadership, simply had fewer entry points in Yoruba land than it had in the Hausa North. But there was one entry point, and someone opened it. And that is the most important part of this entire story. Let's talk about Afonja. Afonja was the Are Ono Kakanfo, the supreme military commander of the Oyo Empire. By the early 1800s, his relationship with the Alafin had broken down completely. He was locked in a power struggle, and he was looking for allies. He found one in a Fulani Islamic cleric named Alimi, who had been preaching in the Ilorin area, which at that time was a Yoruba city, firmly within the Oyo sphere. Afonja invited Alimi and his followers to Ilori. He armed them, he gave them a base, he used them as a military tool in his conflict against the central Oyo authority. Now, on paper, that sounds like a calculated political move. The problem is that reality looked very different. Alimi's followers were not just soldiers, they were ideologically committed participants in a jihad that was actively expanding across the region. Bringing them into Ilori was not bringing in a neutral mercenary force. It was opening the gates to an army that had its own destination in mind. Fact: after Afonja's death, killed as the historical record indicates by the very forces he had invited, Alimi's son Abdusalam consolidated control of Ilori and integrated it into the Sokoto Caliphate as an emirate. Ilori was not conquered, Ilori was handed over, from the inside, by the man who was supposed to be its defender. Here is the fact that reframes everything. The biggest threat to Yoruba sovereignty in the 19th century was not the Sokoto Caliphate, it was internal fragmentation. And the Caliphate's most significant southern foothold was not won on a battlefield, it was won in a council chamber, through a miscalculation by a man who thought he could control what he had invited in. If what I just told you about Afonja surprises you, or if it sounds familiar in a very modern way, drop a comment below. I want to know what you're thinking before we get to the part that connects all of this to right now. But Ilori was not the end of the story. It was actually the point where Yoruba resistance became more organized, not less. Because here's what the historical record shows. Fact: the Yoruba successor states, particularly Ibadan, actively used trade routes through Lagos to acquire firearms that inland Caliphate forces did not have equivalent access to. Ibadan in particular became a heavily armed military republic built almost entirely around professional soldiery. Not a monarchy, a war machine. And there's something else, something that challenges the romantic unified Yoruba resistance narrative. Fact: the Ekiti-Parapo Confederation of 1878, the alliance that fought what many historians mark as the decisive campaign halting Ilorin's southward push, was not formed to resist the Caliphate. It was primarily formed to resist Ibadan's own dominance over smaller Yoruba subgroups.
Think about that. The alliance that stopped the Caliphate's expansion was built by people who were simultaneously fighting each other. This is not a story of a unified people defending a homeland. This is a story of multiple competing groups, each pursuing their own strategic interest, who happened to converge at the right moment to produce the right military outcome. Called strategy, not ethnic loyalty. And by the 1880s, there was a third actor entering the equation, one that would freeze the military map in place permanently. But here's what that intervention cost. And this is where the 19th century connects directly to what you are watching play out in Abuja today. By the 1880s, the British were moving inland from Lagos. They had commercial interests, trade routes, palm oil, access to the interior. They had strategic interests containing French expansion from the west and north, and they had a preference for stability. In 1893, the British imposed a protectorate over Yoruba land. The constant Yoruba intergroup wars, which had been the mechanism of resistance as much as the military campaigns, were shut down by colonial order. The British did not come as saviors of Yoruba sovereignty. Let me be very clear about that. They came as administrators, and they made decisions based on their own interests. Ilorin, a Yoruba-founded city, now an emirate within the Caliphate structure, was placed under the Northern Protectorate, not the Southern Protectorate. When Nigeria was amalgamated in 1914, that boundary was formalized. Ilorin became Northern Nigeria, and it stayed that way. The question was never really, did Yoruba land submit to Sokoto? The deeper question is, how did the boundaries drawn by a 19th century military stalemate become the fault lines of 21st century Nigerian politics? Because that is exactly what happened.
The 1914 amalgamation placed both the Caliphate's successor structures and the Yoruba successor states under a single administrative unit, without asking either of them. The Caliphate had maintained extraordinary administrative cohesion through its emirate system. The Yoruba states had fragmented and refragmented through a century of civil conflict. Entering independence, the North had a unified administrative architecture. The South had a collection of competing units. That structural difference shaped everything that followed, from the First Republic to the military coup cycles to the resource control debates you are watching today. And for those of you watching from the diaspora, in AUK, in the US, in Canada, this history is not an abstract academic exercise. It is the foundation of every Nigerian political argument you've ever had at a dinner table. Let's talk about what the British actually did, because it's more complicated than the standard colonial narrative. When Frederick Lugard established indirect rule in the North after 1903, he preserved the emirate administrative system almost entirely intact. The emirs retained authority over local taxation, courts, and social order under British supervision. The Caliphate's successor structures were given institutional continuity. In the South, British administration was far more interventionist. Traditional Yoruba and Igbo political institutions were frequently bypassed, modified, or replaced with warrant chiefs and colonial appointees. Lugard himself noted that the North was easier to rule through existing structures. This asymmetry was not malicious, it was pragmatic. But pragmatism has consequences. Entering independence in 1960, northern administrative institutions had 57 years of British reinforced continuity. Southern institutions had 57 years of disruption and adaptation. That is the institutional gap that shaped the post-independence power contest. Now, for those of you watching from London, Houston, Toronto, or anywhere in the diaspora, I want to be direct. The conversations happening in Nigerian communities abroad about restructuring, resource control, and political representation are not new conversations. They are the same conversation that has been happening since 1914, except now they are happening in diaspora WhatsApp groups, YouTube comment sections, and Twitter threads instead of colonial administrative offices. The Oduduwa Republic conversation, the Middle Belt autonomy movement, the resource control debate, these are not products of modern frustration. They are the political expression of communities that have never fully accepted the colonial boundary settlement because they were never consulted on it. Whether you agree with those positions or not, you cannot understand them without understanding 1804, 1878, and 1914. History is not justification, but it is context. And without context, you are just reacting. You're not thinking. But I want to be fair, because the argument I just made has a counter, and it's a strong one. Let's look at it honestly.
There are three arguments that push back on everything I've just said, and they deserve honest answers. Counter-argument 1. The Oyo Empire was already collapsing from within. The Caliphate didn't need to conquer it, it was self-destructing anyway. This is partially true, and that's important to acknowledge. Old Oyo's internal contradictions were severe. The constitutional crisis between the Alathin and the Oyo Messi had been destabilizing the empire for decades before the jihad reached its borders. A case can be made that Old Oyo was going to fall regardless. But here's the problem with that argument. It conflates the fall of a capital with the conquest of a people. Old Oyo's capital fell, the Yoruba people reorganized and continued resistance for another 60 years. Those are two different events. Collapsing one into the other is historically inaccurate and conveniently supports a conquest narrative that the actual military record does not sustain. Counter-argument 2. The British stopped the Caliphate, not Yoruba military resistance. Yoruba sovereignty was a colonial gift. This one sounds convincing. The problem is that the timeline doesn't support it. Yoruba military resistance, documented, organized, and effective, ran from the 1820s to the 1880s, more than 60 years before the British Protectorate. The British did not arrive to rescue a defeated people. They arrived at an ongoing military stalemate and imposed their own settlement on all parties. Fact, that settlement placed Ilorin in the north against Yoruba objections. If British intervention were a gift to Yoruba sovereignty, it was a gift that came with a significant deduction. Counter-argument 3. This is just tribal history being weaponized for modern political agendas. This is perhaps the most important counter-argument, and it deserves a direct response. Every national history is potentially weaponizable. That is not a reason to suppress the history. It is a reason to demand accuracy. A false conquest narrative that the Caliphate swept through and subjugated the South serves certain political actors. A false resistance romanticism that Yoruba or any other people formed a perfect unified front and defeated everything serves different political actors. Both distortions serve someone. Accuracy serves you.
The accurate record is a military stalemate frozen by colonial intervention, produced boundaries that were never legitimately negotiated between the peoples themselves. That unfinished negotiation is the engine of Nigerian political conflict today across ethnic and regional lines. So what does that mean going forward? What should you be watching for? Here's what I want you to watch for, and I mean watch for literally, as in pay attention when you see these signals in Nigerian political news. First, watch how political actors invoke 1804. When someone in Abuja references the jihad in a speech, in an interview, in a policy document, ask yourself, what are they using that history to justify? Who benefits from that particular framing? History is a political resource. People deploy it strategically. Second, watch the Ilorin question. Ilorin remains constitutionally in Kwara State, geopolitically in the north-central zone, despite being a Yoruba-founded city. Any political movement within Kwara asserting Yoruba cultural or political identity will be a leading indicator that the 19th century boundary settlement is re-entering active political contestation. Third, watch the restructuring debate. The conversations about devolution of power, resource control, and state police in Nigeria's National Assembly are not primarily about economics or security. They are, at their core, about whether the colonial-era boundary settlement, which was never agreed to by the peoples, should be renegotiated or enforced. When you understand that frame, the debates make more sense. The positions become more predictable, the stakes become clearer. And for Middle Belt communities specifically, the critical question is whether their resistance history enters the political mainstream or remains compressed into a simplified North versus South framing that serves neither accuracy nor their actual interests. The long-term trajectory of Nigerian politics will be shaped by whether these unresolved 19th century questions are addressed through constitutional negotiation or whether they continue to express themselves through the cyclical crises that have defined Nigerian political history since independence. There is no neutral position on this. The status quo is itself a position. It's just one that nobody explicitly chose. Which brings us back to where we started. We started with one question. If the 1804 jihad was so powerful, why did it stop? The answer is not romantic. The Oyo Empire did not repel the Caliphate because Yoruba warriors were braver, or because God intervened, or because destiny had decided where civilizations ended and began. The answer is structural. It is architectural. It is cold and political and precise. Constitutional distribution of power made it hard to flip leadership from the inside. A professional military class anchored outside the political system maintained capacity even when the political system cracked. Trade intelligence, specifically access to firearms through Lagos, gave successor states a material advantage in sustained resistance, and one man's decision to invite a jihad army into his city as a political tool produced the one significant breach, Ilorin. The Oyo Empire did not win. The Sokoto Caliphate did not lose. What happened was a military stalemate produced by structural resistance, sustained by strategic calculation, and frozen in place by a colonial intervention that imposed its own settlement on boundaries nobody had agreed to negotiate. And that frozen settlement is the map of modern Nigeria. The question is no longer what happened in the 19th century. The question is what Nigerians, all Nigerians, decide with the map that was drawn without their consent.
Now that everything is clear, let's see if the Hausa-speaking tribe in northern parts of Nigeria will unite and put a stop to this mess created by the Fulani elite. All this while, Hausa dey address Fulani as their brother. As things turn around, the Fulanis no longer know Hausa as their brother. The Hausas are saying, we don't want anything to do with the Fulanis anymore. The painful part of it is that these same people, this cabal that is terrorizing the country, want to come to power again, and our government are romancing them. Nigeria will never get better if we keep hearing repentance Boko Haram, repentance terrorists. No matter what they do, no matter how they do it, Nigeria will never get better with that mentality. As I speak with you right now, the 36 states in Nigeria is not safe. Terrorists don't surround everywhere. People can no longer travel in peace. People cannot sleep in their comfortable house with their two eyes closed because of how these people don't take they terrorize the state. They are terrorizing the country.
Oh yes, that is it. You all have seen it and you all have heard everything that is happening in the country. The northern people, both their leaders and both their youth, they are now calling on the east, the west, for them to come for their rescue. For them to come for their rescue. It is very, very a shocking video. This is something that at the beginning they used to claim that all of them they are one. Hausa Fulani. But now their eyes has now opened. That is why they are now demanding for help from the east and from the west. And then the person who even tell them the truth, who opened their eyes, who revealed those things to them, that these people, they are not one. They sentence the person claiming that he's a terrorist. Why the main terrorist? They are there, buying them, destroying them, and they're doing a lot of things. It's just a very shameful something to say, because a country that is dwelling like in Nigeria, that believe in manipulation and in making sure that they suppress the truth. That is how they used to be. Then going down to the issue of Oyo and Kwara, the brief history concerning that state and how the Fulani Caliphate conquer and take over. And the main reason why they used to look at Yorubas as infidel. So the matter has been explained. Now everybody understand the real thing and the thing that is there. In fact, I would like to hear your comments down below, like, subscribe, and share for everyone to see things going on in Nigeria. So thank you for watching.